Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know I haven't been posting videos as I should. I'm trying to get on the schedule, but I've decided that I'm going to start doing true crime videos, but I'd never realized how much work actually goes into it. Like, you have to do a lot of research, then put everything together, make sure that everything is accurate, that you're being respectful. It's a lot of work, but I will get those videos out eventually. But today I'm going to be talking about my multiple sclerosis diagnosis, also known as MS. Now, this is a disease that's very complex, and I still don't understand or know a lot about it. So I'll just tell you my experience with it so far. I first got diagnosed back in March of 2013, and it was very unexpected. I mean, none of us really expect to get sick or plan to get sick, right? But at the time, I was working at a youth... Oh God, I can't... Listen, I have 3 accents that I fight with on a daily basis. At the time, I was working at a youth shelter and I was doing the night shift. So I'd work from Friday nights, I started work at 11 and I would get off at 9. So I would do that Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. So this was a Friday morning. And the night before, on Thursday, I was drinking and I was mixing my alcohol. Like, I'd have a beer, I'd have some wine and whatever, which is always a no-no. But the next morning when I woke up, my head was groggy. I had a monster headache. My eyes were blurry. I just felt like crap. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, is this a hangover? I've never had a hangover before. It sounds like I'm excited. I wasn't. That's just what I thought it was, because I've never experienced it before. So I'm like, I'm going to sleep it off. Maybe if I sleep it off, I'll feel better, So throughout the day, I'd take a nap, get up, whatever, eventually until it was 10 o'clock. Or 9:30, 10 when I was getting ready to go to work. But I wasn't feeling any better. And my eyes had started to get very sensitive to light. And I remember driving to work and I literally had to squint. Like, one eye was, I had to like drive like this to get to work, because the lights from the other cars and from the postings or whatever, it was very hard on my eyes. And I got to work and my coworker could tell that I wasn't feeling well, like I was off. And I explained to him, like, you know what, I'm not feeling well. I think it was the alcohol from the night before. I don't know. But he was very understanding. He's like, you know what, go take a break, take a nap or whatever. And the shelter shut down now, so I took a nap, whatever. The next morning now, it was even worse. I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna feel better and whatever. And my roommate's like, you know what, go to the doctor and try and find out what's going on. And I'm like, I don't want to go to the doctor, because every experience that I've, at least back then, when you go to the doctor, especially when you're younger and you try to explain, I'm not feeling well or whatever, a lot of times what I would hear is, oh, you're young, your body will recover, your body will do what it needs to do. Don't drink caffeine, drink as much caffeine or whatever, which I wasn't a big caffeine drinker at the time. Oh, go to bed at a decent time, get enough sleep, drinking water or whatever. I'm telling you, I have a headache. What the hell does that have to do with it? And I'm not talking about just that experience. I'm talking about from before. Or they'll prescribe you Tylenol or some stupidness like Tylenol 3 or whatever. So I'm like, I don't want to go to the doctor. I'm not going to go to the doctor. I'm like, I already know what you're going to tell me. And I didn't take it seriously at the time, because I didn't know what was going on. I'm thinking, I'll sleep it off and I'll get better. So Saturday night now, or no, Saturday morning. So came home, slept or whatever. And in the night now, I got up, supposed to be going to work. And my eyesight was starting to, like, I was having double vision. My head was hurting me. I don't even know how I function to get up and get ready to go to work. My roommate kept saying to me, Juliana, go to the doctor, go to the hospital, because at least the hospital you'll be seen. It's a long wait, but you'll be able to get diagnosed faster. And me being the stubborn person that I am, I'm like, I'm not going to the hospital. I'm not going. But, and I went to work that night. Sunday morning now, I just couldn't take it anymore. My head felt like it was split into two. Like, that was the worst headache that I've ever gotten. And I've suffered from headaches all my life. And I would go to the doctors and complain, and they'll always tell you, take a Tylenol, sleep it off, don't drink as much caffeine, which I wasn't a big caffeine drinker, but that's all I would hear. And, or they'll say, eat on time so you don't get, like, it was ridiculous. I was not being taken seriously. And maybe if I were, maybe I would be diagnosed a lot earlier. But finally, I had to go Sunday night. I had to call into work, and I had to go to the hospital. And I actually didn't even go call in at work right away, because I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'll get seen faster, and maybe I'd be released early enough to go in for my 11 o'clock shift. I like to torture myself. That's what it was. I hate calling into work, and no matter how sick I am, sometimes I'll still go to work. So I went into and I don't even remember if I took the cab to the hospital or if my roommate's dad dropped me off. For some reason, I remember her being at the hospital, because I remember her telling me when I was walking in, I was drifting. I wasn't walking straight. And I didn't even realize I was off, like my posture or whatever. I didn't even realize that was off until she told me. But I went in and I registered. They asked their questions and whatever, the typical. And I swear, I was in the hospital for the waiting room for about 4 to 6 hours. And I went in, the doctor who saw me, I can't remember if it was the first doctor. I can't remember if it was a guy or a girl or a woman or whatever. They asked me a bunch of questions. She did the exam. You know, like when you go to the eye doctor, she did one of those exams, you know. And I knew right away, like, something was wrong. I didn't know what it was, but at the time I was working in social work, and a lot of my clients were mental health. So I always had to be aware of body language, because I've been spat on before. I had stuff thrown at me. So it's like I always have to be ready to duck if they're throwing something, or to block a blow or something. So I just knew her body language changed. And she's like, I think I know what it might be, but I'm not sure. I need a second opinion. Had to wait another hour or so for another doctor to come in, and he did the official. There's this machine, can't remember. You know the machine that you go to when you go to get your eyes checked? You sit behind the machine and they make you do those. Could you see what letter that is? Could you see how many fingers I'm holding up, kind of thing, or whatever. And it was torture, because the light, when they had to shine the light into my eye, because they wanted to see the back of my eyes, it was torture, because my eyes were, like I said, super sensitive at the time. And he went out, he talked to the other doctor, he came back in, and he's like, unfortunately, I think you might have MS, but we're not sure, and these are the options. So they could have admitted me that night, and I could get the MRI done the next morning, or they can discharge me with a referral, and I would have to wait about 6 months. It could have taken up to 6 months for me to get an appointment to do the MRI. So obviously I chose to be admitted, you know, because I'm the type of person, my head would have went a million different ways. I'm like, I would have thought the worst. So, and I wanted to be sure, I wanted to get a proper diagnosis. So I'm like, I will stay the night at the hospital, do whatever you need to do. I called my work, and I'm like, I can't come in. I'm at the hospital. They think I might have multiple sclerosis, which is something I should have never done. Because from once I said that to her, it's like the way how she started to speak to me. And by the time I got back to work, I had taken about 2 or 3 months off work after my diagnosis. And when I got back to work, everybody knew what it was. And at the time I never knew that that was a violation or whatever my rights were. I never knew. But anyways, the next morning now, I had to get the MRI. And Actually, let me go back a bit. That night when I was in the hospital room, my mind was going a million different ways. I remember I called my roommate. I'm like, take care. I mean, she was gonna be at the house anyways, but I'm like, watch the kids for me. I'm gonna be spending the night at the hospital, sort of thing. And I broke down when I was in the room by myself, and I'm like, MS. The only person that I knew at the time with MS was Montel Williams, the talk show host from like years ago. But I still never really knew what it was. I remember when he had disclosed that he had it, I went and I looked it up. But this was years ago. That wasn't still on my mind. And then I went to, when I was in the hospital as well, I went on Google as usual to look it up to see the symptoms and whatever. But I'm like, I didn't really have any symptoms, you know, other than like the headaches and whatever. I used to be tired. I still am tired a lot because fatigue is one of the symptoms. And I broke down, and I'm like, and ignorant. I was ignorant at the time. I'm like, black people we don't get this. This is not something that black people get. This is not a black people disease. I was being ignorant. And then it came down, I'm like, why me? Why me of all people? Like, it's not something that necessarily kills you per se. But I'm like, this is something I would have to live with the rest of my life, you know? And it's just, and I'm going back, and I'm not gonna cry on camera, but I'm like, why me out of all people? Why this? Why couldn't it have been something else? But anyways, the next morning, the MRI, they took me down for the MRI. And I hate being in that machine, by the way, because you have to stay still. You can't move. And I was in there for about, it seems like forever. It could have been like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I'm not sure. But after I'm done, I had to wait a couple hours for them to get the results and for the doctor to come in and talk to me. And it was official. I had multiple sclerosis. There were lesions at the front of my brain at the time. And that's what was causing my vision to start to go. And had I not got into the hospital, I would have eventually started to go. Actually, I was starting to go blind. That's what it was. I was starting to go blind. And I'm like, what? I was so mad. Like, I kept questioning everything. I'm like, why me? Like, I've gone through so much things in my life already. Why do I have to be diagnosed with something that's a life condition that I'd have to be on meds for the rest of my life? It's not, there's no cure for it, you know? But after I was diagnosed, they referred me to a neurologist. Actually, I'm jumping ahead again. After I got diagnosed and whatever, I had to start treatment of steroids. I had to do three days of steroids. So after I got diagnosed, I had to go back for 3 days in a row, and I had to do steroids, which was done by IV or whatever. And my vision started to come back eventually. Not that it had gone or whatever, like the double vision and whatever, it started to correct itself. And yeah, that's how I got diagnosed with MS. And I got referred to a neurologist, which was at St. Mike's Hospital in downtown Toronto. And it took me a few months to get in to see them. And after they discussed with me the different types of medication, and I actually should have brought I'm gonna go and see if I can find one. I still have them in my fridge, which I don't take them now, but they gave me, I think I had the choice between 5 to 7 different types of medication. And after researching them or whatever, I chose to go on Copaxone, which was a needle that I had to take every single day. I had to insert myself with that needle every single day. Because the other ones, there were other ones that I could take like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, or the pills or whatever. But then that meant I had to go do testing on my liver every 6 months to make sure that there was no damage. And Copaxone, there were no side effects that they had found at the time. So I chose to go on that one. And I was on it for about 1.5 years straight. And eventually I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And I stopped taking it. And I had to go back. Every year you're supposed to go back and get an MRI done. The first time after my diagnosis, I went and I did it, and my lesions had gotten worse. The second time I went back, I had no lesions, or the lesions had healed. And I began to question it. I'm like, do I really have MS? Are you guys sure? Like, are you sure? I'm like, is there any hope in there that maybe you could have been mistaken or something? They're like, no, we're not mistaken. But I stopped taking the meds because I basically, having to do it every day, I start to, and it has to be done in the fatty tissue. So like on your legs, on the sides here where there's fat or whatever, in your stomach. I literally start to run out of places to inject myself. And sometimes I would inject myself on an area that probably hasn't been healed yet. And then there would be like a bump and whatever. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Plus I was trying to get pregnant with my 3rd child at the time. And you're not, even though there's no studies to say that the medication would cause, you know, disruption to the fetus or to the baby or whatever, I chose not to go on it. And I haven't been on meds for about 3 or 4 years now. And I haven't really, there's so many side effects with this disease. I've had a couple of relapses or whatever. Thankfully not with my vision. But there's so many, as I said, this is a disease that I still don't understand. Being low in vitamin D is one of a lot of people with MS, that's one of the traits of it. Like you're low on vitamin D, and I'm the type of person, I don't go outside that often. And at one point I'm like, if I was back in St. Vincent, I would have been exposed to a lot more sun, so maybe this wouldn't happen. Like, I don't know. I blamed my father sometimes because he has 4 kids and all of us has an autoimmune issue. Like my brother has vitiligo, and that's where his skin changes color. Like he's losing the pigmentation in his skin. And I'm like, it must be his genes. It has to be, because all 4 of your kids have an autoimmune issue. Like, you know, and I know if he ever, I've said it to him before as a joke, but if he hears me on camera saying this now, he's like, Julie, make you say that, you know? So unfortunately, this is a disease that I have to live with for the rest of my life. I self-medicate with weed. Listen, I used to smoke it before, but now I have an official reason to smoke it. I know some people are against it, but whatever. But I've learned to take advantage of it as well. Like I have my, what do you call it? That sticker that you put on your the handicap sticker, which I do need it at times because my walking sometimes might be hard because it's like my muscles get stiff sometimes. It's not like anything drastic or whatever. And I wouldn't necessarily say my muscles, but like my nerves or whatever. There are times where I'll just be sitting here and I feel like there's something walking on me. And I'll start to react. And when I look, there's nothing there. And in my head, I know there's something there, but it's like I still have to react. I still have to brush it just in case it's something else, you know? And it's kind of hard to explain what MS is. I'm trying to look to see. I don't have anything, but think of it as you have an electric cord. And you know how the electric cord is protected, actually. You see like how this is protected? The wiring in here is protected. It's like basically people with MS, it's not like the outer part is damaged sort of thing. So it just makes it.
Multiple sclerosis is a disease that impacts the brain and spinal cord, which make up the central nervous system that controls everything we do, whether it's taking a physical step or solving a complex problem. The exact cause of MS is unknown, but we do know that something triggers the immune system to attack the brain and spinal cord. The resulting damage to myelin that insulates wire-like nerve fibers is a disruption of signals to and from the brain. This interruption of communication signals causes unpredictable symptoms such as numbness, tingling, mood changes, memory problems, pain, fatigue, blindness, or paralysis. Everyone's experience with MS is different, and these losses may be temporary or long-lasting. Most people initially have relapsing remitting MS, where they experience attacks of new symptoms followed by periods of time when those symptoms go away partially or completely. Others experience gradual and ongoing loss of function without distinct attacks, which is known as progressive MS. MS can be difficult to diagnose, but once a diagnosis is confirmed by a neurologist who is knowledgeable about MS, there are disease-modifying therapies for reducing attacks and slowing down the damage. Growing evidence suggests that early and ongoing treatment with a disease-modifying therapy is an important defense against future attacks. There are also treatment strategies to address some MS symptoms. Options are still limited for slowing down or stopping progressive MS. Worldwide research is accelerating the discovery of how to slow down or even stop progressive MS, how to repair nervous system damage and restore function, wellness strategies such as exercise and diet that can help people with MS to live their best life.
Oh Lord, my son is up. It's a complicated disease, but that's my story of how I got diagnosed. And yeah. Okay guys, I had to cut the video a bit short. I'm in my washroom, but I just wanted to show you guys the needle that I'm talking about, the Copaxone. Yeah, so this is the needle that I had to take, and this has been expired since 2017, I think, or maybe even before. I still have some in my fridge. I don't know why. And like I was saying, I've been off meds for the last 3 or 4 years, but for this year I really need to go and see my neurologist because I need to get an MRI done to see if there's any damage being done, if there are any new lesions or anything. And I think sometimes I'm in denial because it doesn't really affect me as bad as some other people, and I think I take advantage of that. There's different types of MS, and I think the one I have is the relapsing something, I can't even remember the name of it right now. But every time I have a relapse, it does damage, is what I've been told. Luckily, my eyes has not been affected, but that's one of my fears, that eventually at some point I might go blind. I'm hoping not. But yeah, and I have no problem injecting myself because my grandmother suffered from diabetes and I used to have to inject her when I was younger. But I don't know, like I said, I've been self-medicating with weed. I grew up around weed. Like my uncles were like Rastafarians. Like that was part of their lifestyle, you know. They used to go in the mountains in St. Vincent and plant it. And I can talk about that freely now because they don't do it anymore. They're older, so, you know. But yeah, I definitely need to take better care of myself when it comes to my illness. But hopefully they can come up with a different medication because like this is the only one that doesn't have side effects so far. But I don't know if there has been any new ones in the last few years that I can potentially go on now. I'm hoping. But yeah, guys, that's my story with MS. And I know a lot of people have issue with weed smoking. No one can tell me anything bad about it. I know that there are some people that might have a bad reaction to it, but I think they might have had something else going on. And I know if you start smoking it at a young age, it could affect you mentally. But I started smoking when I was in my mid-20s, you know. And it depends on the strain of it as well. I think sometimes when you see people smoke it and they have a reaction with it, it's mixed with something else. It's not just the raw weed, and there's different strains. But this is not a good versus bad when it comes to weed type of video. So if it works for you, it works. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. If you have your opinions about it, then that's fine as well. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. But that's my story with MS. And yeah, if you let me know in the comment section, is this something that you suffer with? How do you deal with it? What meds are you on? And I know the meds in Canada are different than in the States. So let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.